Where are we today?
We are in downtown Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
And what is this place right here that we're standing in?
This is the historic Myrtle Beach Train Depot.
Okay. Now, it's historic, it's a gorgeous building. What's the story of the building?
Oh my goodness, where do we begin? Would you like us to start with the beginning of the depot or the beginning of saving the depot?
Well, I'd like to hear both. So if the natural progression is to just start with what the building was before the saving of it, that would probably be best.
Well, in the 1900, the early 1900s, the train depot and the railroad was about the only way to get into Myrtle Beach. The railroad and railroad station became the lifeblood of Myrtle Beach. Okay. Just about everything that came into Myrtle Beach to build the guest houses, the hotels, the restaurants and so forth, all of that material came in on the railroad through this little depot.
Even though it was, you're right on the ocean, you had more stuff come in through the train than through ships?
We actually had no highways into Myrtle Beach, except for a long meandering trail from Conway through South Myrtle Beach into Myrtle Beach before 501 was brought in 48.
Okay.
And we had no port off the ocean, and we had no really means for ships to get in and out. The closest ports were in Wilmington and Charleston.
So the reason Myrtle Beach is what it is today is because of the train?
The train and the depot.
Absolutely.
So the train station is really what made Myrtle Beach what it is today?
Well, I would say the lifeblood of Myrtle Beach, because all the materials flowed through this train depot.
This one we're standing
over the rails. I might mention, if I may, that originally this was a little frame building.
Okay.
And in the early 30s, the company, the major landowner, Myrtle Beach Farms, Burroughs and Collins Company, saw fit to build this building, a new building, and they cut the ribbon in May of 1937.
Okay.
To inaugurate this building, which we have restored.
Now, as you said, it's restored. If this was the lifeblood, what happened to it that made it not the lifeblood?
Fortunately, the highways.
The highways came in from Conway and from points west. People were traveling more and more by car, and freight was traveling more and more by truck.
Okay.
So over the years in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the use of the rail to bring materials and passengers in really kind of waned. And the railroad actually eventually sold the depot into private hands.
Okay, and once it went to private hands, what happened with the depot?
Well, in front of the depot, there used to be standing a huge metal building that was a beer warehouse. This was bought by a beer distributor. They were using the depot as storage, and at least the front part of the depot as storage, and the back part was used as their maintenance garage for their beer trucks.
Okay, and then I take it they didn't stay in business, or they moved?
No, they're actually doing quite well. They outgrew the space.
Okay.
And decided to move towards Conway
okay.
on the highway where they could their trucks could be better facilitated. And they put the property on the market, and that's kind of where the community stepped in. The depot had been hidden behind their huge metal warehouse that had been out front, and a lot of people had forgotten it was here.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly, and it had fallen into pretty bad disrepair. And there were homeless people living in it, and there was a lot of graffiti and a lot of vandalism. And after a while, after the property sat on the market for a while, the property owner was advised that it could sell better if everything was demolished.
Wow.
And that's where Jack stepped in.
I have a business just around the corner at that time. And one afternoon, I was on my way to the post office, and I rode by here, and I saw bulldozers set up, ready to demolish the building.
And because it was private property, they could just do that?
Well, there was a demolition permit that had been submitted to the city, and it had not quite yet been approved, but they were anticipating the inevitable approval of the demolition permit.
Wow.
When Jack went to city council and said, wait a minute, we need to do something.
Wow. It's amazing to me how quick some people are to just tear down history. And thankfully, somebody was there to stop it. So that doesn't always happen, though. So what did you do that got this place saved?
Well, during my excitement of seeing the possibility of the depot being demolished, I immediately ran over to city council and was stopped at the door by a man with a nice little gold badge, and he said I had to come back next Monday and get on the agenda. I said, thank you very much, and I ran down the aisle to the podium. And he ran after me, and the mayor said, that's all right, I believe Jack may have been to happy hour. Let him speak. So I gave a little speech to the council, and I indicated that it was a diamond in the rough, and it was a jewel in our midst, and for past and future generations, I thought we should save it. The clincher was that I believe there's enough wisdom among all of you to find a way to save it. They took a little recess, they came back, and they said, Jack, we'll save that depot if you'll raise the money to restore it.
And how much were you able to raise?
$600,000.
Wow.
So after I loosened my tie, I asked them they asked me if I'd be chairman of a committee, the All Aboard Committee. And I said, well, does that pay anything? So I took that challenge. We put together a board of trustees, a committee, with Kelly as our director, and we set about to raise funds for the renovation, and very successfully.
What did, I guess almost as advice to people, because there are people all over the place trying to save historic buildings, historic sites, landmarks, scrounging and just doing anything they can to try to save money or get money for it. What did you do that got so much money?
Well, we did a few things. The first thing we did was we needed to make the community aware.
Okay.
And one of the things that we did that was really kind of interesting, like I said, the depot was in really bad shape. And so we put out a call to the community to help us clean it up.
Okay.
And we had about 30 people come out that day with work gloves and trash cans, and we pulled some pretty disgusting stuff out of this building. But we got a lot of press, and the community realized that there was history here. We have a lot of people in the community who complain that a lot of the history has been destroyed, but a lot of people don't really realize where the small pockets of history remain. So we kind of put a spotlight on it. And once we did, the community really rallied around it.
Wow. Okay. And then from there, what did you do? Was there anything special you did that really jump-started people beyond that?
Well, we went to the state, and the state Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism gave us a bit of a check.
Okay.
We went to what is the current version of the Burroughs and Collins Company, which is the Burroughs and Chapin Company, and said this is a part of your history too. And they agreed, and with cameras rolling, they gave us a check. And then, do you want to talk about the train ride that we had?
Well, actually, and additionally, we approached the South Carolina legislature, and they earmarked quite a chunk of money toward the restoration, and that kind of put us over the top.
Excellent.
But there were a lot of individuals that donated money and a lot of companies that donated funds, and we just kind of cruised right along. And then Kelly approached the South Carolina Department of Archives and History about getting the property on the historic designation
The National Register.
the National Registry. And of course, she was successful at that, so very proud that we have been designated. One of the other things is that we put in a walk of history. We have a walkway that sort of surrounds the front parking lot, inlaid with bricks, inscribed with people's names. Citizens could come forward and purchase a brick with their family name, and we've inlaid all of that. I think we raised quite a bit of money with that.
So all the names we see out on the sidewalk are people who bought these bricks towards helping this building.
Right.
And the Carolina Southern Railroad was generous in that they brought in a train one day, and they pulled a couple of the old Pullman cars, and we did a fundraiser train ride from here to Conway, and we had both cars full for I can't remember how many rides, 5 or 10 rides that day. And it was fun. Everybody really enjoyed seeing the train come into the station because it had been 20 years since anyone had seen the train come into the station. So it really brought the community out. And we had a board, a big sign out in front that had the logo of the All Aboard Committee, which was the engine with smoke coming out of the smokestack. And the smoke was measuring the funds that we had raised. So once a month we would go out and we would fill in a little bit more. So the whole community was keeping their eye on us to see when we were going to reach our goal.
And that's great to get the community behind it because, as I said, you know, people just forget about history. People will just let it go. And to be able to rally everybody that's seeing a success story like this. Because, as I said before, I've seen not success stories. I've seen beautiful buildings get torn down because nobody did something about it. Or, you know, you see old pictures of beautiful buildings and, yeah, that was there, but now it's a chain store or something like that. And to be able to have a success story like this, it's inspirational to other people. And hopefully they'll be able to follow some of your steps of what you did, you know, getting the community involved, going to the state, going to a link to the past of the building to see if you can get interest in funding to really be able to restore and save. And this is a nice, beautiful, beautiful building.
We think so. We thought it was worth saving. And I can't emphasize enough how important it was to have one person step up and say, wait a minute, something needs to be done, and we need to do it right now. If you don't have that one person to jumpstart it, the building's going to be gone before anybody even knows it.
And that was you.
Well, it's, you know, it's tantamount to the fact that one person in history can make a difference that changes history. And of course, I'll be proud of that the rest of my life. And we might mention our time capsule that we put together.
Oh, that's right. We have a time capsule that you'll see over here that has all of the, a lot of artifacts from 1936, as well as from 2006, 2000, I'm sure the date's on it, from when we cut the ribbon the second time after the renovation.
Now, was it artifacts you found in the building when you were cleaning it out?
Artifacts that we found, as well as photographs that we had found. And some paperwork and things that we had found.
Is there a date for when you're planning on opening the time capsule?
We had 50 years on it.
50 years.
We plan to be here for the grand opening.
Excellent. And what is the now that the building's on the National Registry, what is the purpose of this building other than just preserving the history? What brings people here?
Well, the history is what brings them here. We don't have a lot of space that is historic, and when we renovated the building, we did it with the intention that it would be used as a public space. So we have public meetings here. City Council has met here a time or two. People can rent the facility for special occasions, weddings, and family reunions. We have a lot of family reunions take place here. And a lot of them are families whose, you know, grandparents used to ride the train in and out of Myrtle Beach. So there's some nostalgia there as well.
So having this place as historic, but keeping it alive through current events and current meetings is a nice way of remembering and always keeping it fresh in people's minds.
Absolutely. It's not just a museum piece. It's a functional piece of our current history, and 20 years from now, people will be able to say, I got married there.
That's excellent.
And well, he realized real quick that this would be a flagship destination and a tourist draw. And many people came forward to rent and lease this little depot for seafood house, or beauty salon, or whatever. But the city council, in their wisdom, realized that maybe 3 days at the most, it could be rented out. So we have wedding receptions, weddings, bands that come in on the weekends. So it really is a flagship destination, Myrtle Beach.
Well, it seems like it makes it less about a single location and more about the community. It's everybody's. If you can say, I got married there, or I celebrated a wedding anniversary there, it becomes their place instead of a place.
Family reunions. We have a lot of family reunions here.
In which, and some family reunions can pull people across country, the whole country.
Oh, absolutely.
Or in some cases, if it's big enough, across the world. You know, people fly in from other countries to come to family reunions if they're big enough.
I might mention that in 1952, Sports Illustrated came to Myrtle Beach and had their meeting at one of our wonderful historical country clubs.
Okay.
And originated Sports Illustrated magazine. And many of those executives came in on the train right here at the depot. And I, as a young, curly-headed photographer, had the pleasure of coming over and photographing those gentlemen as they disembarked from the train.
Wow. So the history of this place is sewn right into you. You were right there.
If I may take the pleasure of mentioning something personal. I was in high school here, and in the 9th grade, I had the bright idea of ordering some barbells to take to the high school so that the kids in the gym class could work out with barbells.
Okay.
Well, they came in on the train.
Wow.
And the train master called the high school and said, we've got barbells down here, but we can't get them off the train. Can you send Jack Thompson down here to pick up his weights?
So you were famous since high school.
So, well, actually, we had a little gym. It was called the Little Gym at Myrtle Beach High School, where the fellows that didn't want to dress out in phys ed could go in the little gym and watch Jack Thompson work out.
Well, speaking of personal history, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your history, personal history? What is your history with the area? Why you're so passionate about it?
You want me to go first? My name is Kelly Mezzapelle, and I am a planner with the City of Myrtle Beach. And I was one of those who had seen a lot of history torn down in this town. And when Jack made us aware of the fact that the depot needed preserving, and our city council stepped up and said, okay, I was assigned gratefully to and appreciatively to oversee the committee and work with the restoration of the depot. And the history in this place that I learned about in the process is just, it gets into your soul. And this place will always be in my heart. And before Jack, I never even knew it was here.
Wow.
Well, my story goes back to a day that I hitchhiked into Myrtle Beach and got a job the first hour as a photographer in the Myrtle Beach Pavilion.
Okay.
A wonderful, magical place that was on the ocean front. At the end of that summer, I was able to convince my parents to let me stay, and they sent my big brother down as my guardian, and we both stayed. We both graduated at Myrtle Beach. But during my high school years, I was the official photographer for the Ocean Forest Hotel.
Wow.
Another grand, wonderful resort on the north end of Myrtle Beach. This whole community was built around the Ocean Forest Hotel. But there came a day when the hotel fell in disrepair, and actually the property became too valuable underneath it, so it was imploded.
Oh.
It broke my heart because that was, to me, that was my second home, because I was up there every night photographing national conventions.
Wow.
I was on a sand dune one afternoon when the hotel was imploded, with tears in my eyes. Those are classic photographs in my collection.
So you actually took photographs of it imploding?
Of the implosion.
Wow.
So over the years, since 1973, that day that I rode by here and saw the bulldozers, all I could think about was the destruction of the Ocean Forest Hotel. And I said, I can't let that happen again. For the history of Myrtle Beach, we have to save it.
When researching the area, I read a lot about the history, and it seems like a very historical neighborhood, but when I came to town and started searching, a lot of what I saw and what I was directed towards from brochures and books was the boardwalk and very commercial areas. Is that something that you find living here that you wish people would see more of the history?
We do, and the history is few and far between in Myrtle Beach. Like Jack said, the Ocean Forest Hotel has come down. A lot of the old hotels from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s have come down, and those that are still standing are not, frankly, something in a condition that we would really want to direct the tourists to. But the locals know where the history is. We do have a couple of, probably 2 or 3 very historic neighborhoods where people live, and the houses are all older. So we have that, but I really think that one of the reasons for the rallying cry behind the depot was that people had seen so much history come down that they really got to the point where they said enough is enough. And from a more statewide and national point of view, when people think of history in South Carolina, they tend to think of Charleston, which was built up in the 1600s and 1700s, and Myrtle Beach really didn't start taking shape until the late early 1900s. So when we say we have history here, sometimes people poo-poo us because we're not, 300 years old, but we've had to convince people that 50, 75, 100 years old is worth saving.
Well, if you don't save the stuff that's 50, 60, 70 years old, then it won't be there when it is 300 years old.
Absolutely. So we're really glad that you found a little piece of our history and are highlighting it, because we do have history here. And it would be really great to preserve a few more facilities so that we could have more of a cultural tourism draw than just the commercial tourism that we have now.
Is that the spark? Is this place the spark? Are you guys able to take this and say, look at the success with this building, we should do this with this building? Well,
we hope so.
We've done that. We're running out of historical buildings, actually, to save.
Wow.
There are a lot of historical old guest houses. Unfortunately, they're coming down really fast. Myrtle Beach is sort of a new kid on the block on the Carolina coast. We really didn't get kicked off until 1924, when the Woodside brothers came down from Greenville and bought Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
They actually bought 12 miles of oceanfront.
Wow.
And instituted the building of the Ocean Forest Hotel and the Ocean Forest Country Club. They paved Kings Highway for 5 miles, and that brought in hundreds of people involved in the building of that hotel. And today, those people are the patriotic families, the pioneer families of Myrtle Beach. So from that point on began the building of Myrtle Beach history. And we are trying to save as much of that as we possibly can for future generations.
It's kind of interesting to think about how somebody saw the real estate here and said, this might be a nice place to build, but now, because it's such a nice place, the real estate is sucking up the history because it's so valuable now that it's almost more valuable to people than the history, which is sad, in my opinion.
It is, and you know, when people come to vacation, this is a resort town, and they want the central air conditioning, and they want the, you know, every hotel room to have its own bathroom, and our more historic facilities just couldn't accommodate that, which is really sad and unfortunate. I think now there is more of a growing sector of the population that wants to vacation in some place that has a little culture, that doesn't, you know, they're not in a hotel room that looks like every other hotel room anywhere else. They'd stay in the country. And so unfortunately we have fewer and fewer places for that segment of the population to come and stay at the beach.
Now, if somebody came down here and wanted to find history, other than this location, which everybody should come see if you're in Myrtle Beach, where would you direct people to?
Well, we have the historic Myrtle Beach Colored School, which is about 3 blocks from here. It is actually a rebuild more so than a restoration,
okay.
Because the building was too far gone. But it was when there was segregation, it was where all the colored kids went to school. And it has been restored into a museum. Part of it is a museum and part of it is a public space like this. And then there is the Pine Lakes Country Club, which was part of the Woodside Brothers venture. And
okay.
that is where, when the executives came in to meet to form a new sports magazine, that's where they signed all the papers and shook all the hands, was at the Pine Lakes Country Club to form Sports Illustrated magazine.
So any sports fan should go to the Pine Lakes
Absolutely,
Country Club.
And great historic golf course there as well, that was also built by the Woodside Brothers. So that's a great part of our history. The beach itself has been here obviously forever, and if you walk along it, you'll see the same types of dunes and things that you used to see. The Myrtle Beach State Park has the beach in its natural setting, so there's history there as well. What have I missed?
Right, absolutely.
I think that about covers it. There are some, we had a big hurricane blow through here in 1954 called Hurricane Hazel. There was a lot of redevelopment in 1954. So if you're into more of the doo-wop type architecture
okay.
of the 50s and 60s, we still have a lot of the mom and pop hotels that are still in that vernacular. It's fun to just ride through the streets on a bike and take a look at some of the old stuff that's still here.
That's nifty.
Speaking of the value of the land at Myrtle Beach, I had a cute little anecdote that I used to sell bricks for the walkway. And I would tell people that you can purchase a piece of the heart of Myrtle Beach for $50 by purchasing a 4x6 brick and the walk of history at the train depot, and you won't have to pay property taxes.
That's right.
Well, it's a wonderful, as I said, going back to that idea of it being everybody's location, because there's that idea of when you see a building that's not yours and you don't own it, it's that building or it's that place. But when you have a piece of yourself in it, when you can come and enjoy it, it really becomes the community's.
Absolutely. And it was mostly, you know, you would think that a lot of tourists come through and might have bought the bricks, but it was mostly the local community that bought the bricks to donate money for the cause. And I'll tell you, laying out those bricks was not easy because I couldn't put Democrats next to Republicans. I had to be careful of who was divorced and didn't want to be next to this family and that family. That's how much thought went into
wow.
the laying of the bricks and the buying of the bricks.
Wow. Now, you said that the highways kind of took away from the train station. When did the train station officially stop receiving trains?
Well, we had 2 types of trains coming in. We had freight trains and we had passenger trains. The passenger service, I want to say, concluded probably in the early 60s.
Okay.
And that had more to do with the condition of the rails, as well as the demand had gone down. We had freight service running in here until 1985, and then we had kind of a lull. And then it came back until about 3 years ago. There's a lumber company a couple blocks behind us that was still being serviced by the train with freight coming in and out. But a couple of years ago, the powers that be decided that the rails had deteriorated to the point where that wasn't safe anymore either.
Okay.
So it's only been a couple of years that we haven't had a train.
And is there any plans to fix the tracks?
Well, that's a very political question. At the moment, there are no plans to fix the tracks.
Okay.
However, there are great efforts working towards the possibility of fixing the tracks.
Okay. Now, if there was one goal you had for Myrtle Beach, like a place you wanted to save, what is that?
Oh gosh, we lost the pavilion about 5 years ago. The Myrtle Beach Pavilion was really the original tourist destination. And that was torn down about 5 years or so ago. After that, we've got to save the Pine Lakes Country Club. And when we have some historic neighborhoods that need saving, there's a lot of residential architecture that needs preserving. The Wither Swash neighborhood, the Pine Lakes neighborhood, the Booker T. Washington neighborhood. And you can see if we don't go in and add some importance to that, and really try to market the area as someplace worth saving, that one house at a time we're going to start losing it.
Wow, so it's really that marketing thing, it's getting people aware.
Well, I might mention the boardwalk. Back in the late 20s, the original old pavilion that was later replaced in 1948 with the new pavilion that was just demolished, we had a boardwalk. And that boardwalk ran for 3-4 miles.
Wow.
From 2nd Avenue to 16th Avenue North. A wonderful promenade for tourists to enjoy, or people to stroll by the ocean. That boardwalk was destroyed with the Hurricane Hugo.
Wow.
And the city fathers and committees put together a drive to rebuild the boardwalk. And now, as of 3 years ago, we have a fabulous new boardwalk. I believe it's on the Guinness Book of Records for maybe the 5th or 10th best boardwalk in the country.
Wow.
And it's in a continuing building phase. We have extended it down to 2nd Avenue, originally where it began, and now we're approaching, well, I think we have approached 16th Avenue.
Yes.
So we have restored the boardwalk.
Excellent.
And it's absolutely wonderful. It is our new magnet that draws tourists to the oceanfront.
And that boardwalk runs the link between two of our piers, and the piers I would think would be worth saving as well. Especially with all the modern day regulations, I'm not aware that we would be able to build any more piers in Myrtle Beach, so those have been around since before the time of regulation, and they're definitely worth saving.
And are they in risk of, do they need repaired or?
They get the repairs that they need every once in a while. They are a tourist draw, so therefore the money goes to them.
Oh, good.
They are privately owned, which also helps as well. But they're only one storm away from washing away. We have a lot of history down at the former Myrtle Beach Air Base.
Okay.
The Air Base closed in 1993, I believe. But before the Air Force, the Army was there. It dates back to the early 1900s. And when the government came in and closed it, what a lot of communities do is just kind of tear down the old and build new. But what we decided to do was try to preserve as much of the history as we could. So although a few of the buildings themselves have been preserved, we have historic markers all over the former air base telling the history of what was there, or if there's a building that's still there, what it used to be, And all of the roads are named after people who worked or served on the base. So there's a lot of history at the Myrtle Beach Air Force Base, the former Myrtle Beach Air Force Base, which is now the Market Common if anybody's coming to visit.
Okay, so it's open to the public.
Oh, absolutely. It's all an outdoor walking museum is how we refer to it. There are some artifacts in a couple of the rec centers down there, but if you just want to take a stroll, you'll learn all about the history of the military here in Myrtle Beach.
Excellent.
Oh, and Warbird Park, which is also at the front of Market Common, has several of the old airplanes that used to fly in and out of here, the A-10 and I can't remember what others, but if you just want to walk around underneath airplanes that are really cool, that's a good place to go to.
And that's the Market Commons? I'll have to check that out before we leave.
Absolutely. I highly recommend it. Good restaurants there too.
Oh, excellent.
Well, this is the freight area of the depot. This is where all of the freight would come in and out. Probably should have opened the doors, which we can do in a minute if you want to. There was a loading dock on this side of the building that we have rebuilt. When we bought the building, originally there had been a fire set underneath the loading dock and the original loading dock was destroyed. So we had to rebuild the loading dock, which is actually a really nice outdoor space for when there are events in this part of the building. There are some tables and chairs that are set up out there, and that's kind of our smoking area because we don't allow smoking in here. On this side of the depot, there was no loading dock. This is where people could back their trucks right up to the depot. When these doors were opened, it was at truck level, so people could load and unload from there. And there was a ramped loading dock off of the back, so you could drive your truck up onto the ramp and load from there. And that's about all there is to say about this space. It was a very utilitarian space. We were fortunate enough to have great wood floors to restore. The brick walls were in great shape, and all of the original windows and bars that were on the windows. And these are the original rolling doors that are on the depot. Although they slide, they are not very energy efficient, so we have replaced them with swinging doors that are on the outside. That were built to look like the original sliding doors, but all of the hardware and everything is original and kind of interesting and cool.
You were able to save a lot of it, a lot of pieces.
We were. There was some brickwork on the exterior, especially around the loading dock, that had been destroyed. So we went under the depot into the original foundation and were able to support the foundation with some jacks and pull some of the original brick out from under the depot and replace it with cinder blocks so that we could take the original brick and put it on the exterior where everybody could see. And the roof shingles were difficult to find as well. We searched long and hard to find shingles that were architecturally similar to what was originally on the depot, which are kind of a diamond-shaped, kind of an asphalt type shingle, but we had to search hard and long to find them.
From the moment that Jack walked in and said, we need to save this building, to the ribbon cutting, about how long did it take?
About 2.5 years.
2.5
to the end. And part of that was, we were really committed, the city was really committed, and so was the committee, to having it put on the National Register. And in order to do that, the exterior of the building had to be as authentic as you could possibly make it. And the beer company that had owned it had used this back part as a repair and maintenance area, and had really destroyed the back end of the building, especially where the ramped loading dock was. And we had a hard time figuring out what it had originally looked like. And so we had to search for about 1.5 years to find a photograph of what the back of the depot looked like, because they had cut into the roof and had built a whole nother room back there, a great big garage. And so that delayed the process somewhat, but we wanted it to be as historically accurate as we could. So we were persistent and we did it.
So other than having to find that photo, it sounds like you did this at a very quick pace.
We did. Like I said, the community really rallied behind us. We needed the money when we had the money when the money was there, and it was just a matter of getting it done.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, we're standing in what used to be the waiting area for the passenger service for the Myrtle Beach Train Depot. And you might notice that there's a space in the floor here. This is the original concrete floor, and it was originally painted red, but there used to be a wall right here. And you'll notice that there was a door here and a door here right next to each other going out to the front of the depot. We are in the South, and this was a segregated building at the time. This was the white people's waiting room, and this was the black people's waiting room. You might notice that on the white side there was 2 bathrooms. You had a his and a hers. On the black side you had one, and they had to share. And the train came in and out of the tracks right over here. The people on the black side had to go out this door and walk around. People on the white side had their own door that they could access the platform directly from the waiting area. There was great debate when we were restoring the depot as to what to do about this space. The wall had actually been taken down, so this could be used as better storage space. And we decided to leave the wall down, but put a plaque on the wall that describes the wall that used to be here. There actually used to be signs outside telling who to go where. So that's one interesting aspect of our depot. There was debate as to whether or not we should highlight it at all, and we decided that history is history and we needed to save it for what it was.
No, it's better than just completely ignoring it.
Exactly. Okay, we are in the freight management area of the train depot now. There used to be a counter that stood here. That's why there's 2 doors. If you had shipments coming in on the train, you would come through this door to deal with the person standing at the counter to handle the paperwork having to do with your freight. And they could come in and out here from behind the counter or in and out there if they're needing to go in and check out something with their freight. Here on the wall we have the engineer's jacket from Engineer Bobo. He served 50 years coming in and out of this train. So we were lucky enough to get that from his daughter, and she donated it so that we could hang it here forever. And over here is where the station master used to sit. The depot, the architecture of the depot is such, when you look outside, you'll see that this part actually juts out a little bit. The depot master's desk sat in that window, and he could see the train coming in and out of the track. And the safe used to sit there too. So we found extra reinforcements when we looked at underneath the foundation to where to support where the safe used to sit.
It's interesting to see even if it wasn't there anymore, that through the architecture you could see earmarks.
Right, through the foundation.
The foundation, that's incredible.
Yep.
Mr. Zukas, an artist from the coal country up north, came down and sort of fell in love, was struck by the architecture of the depot, and made that wonderful painting and donated it to the depot. We've had a number of people do that. We have our artist, our premier artist that we've just recently lost, Harry Love, did the original painting of the Myrtle Beach Depot that I'll show you in the lobby, that we used as a fundraiser. And we're very successful with selling prints. And we have the original print here in the depot. This photograph here is a shot of the depot prior to the All Aboard Committee taking it over. And then this shot here shows the depot and the parking lot from that same angle prior to the ribbon cutting.
Wow, it's a huge improvement.
Quite a mess.
Quite a mess. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for talking with us. And I urge anybody who comes to Myrtle Beach, not just to spend your time in the bars, but to come see this great building and see all the history.
We have a jewel, and this is a jewel of Myrtle Beach.
And thank you for highlighting it.
My pleasure.